VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. My Father is the Greatest Man in the World. Hosted by Amy Amantea, with special guest JD Montgrand.
So welcome to VocalEye's Almost Live events. My name's Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for VocalEye. I have the extreme pleasure of hosting these Almost Live events, and I'm also a member of the blind community. And before we get started with tonight's programming, I want to welcome Deanna into the space this evening. She's our intern from Adler University, and she's going to offer our land acknowledgement. Deanna, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Jestrin. I also use she, her pronouns. And as Amy said, I am an intern at VocalEye this year. My family comes from the Statliam Nation on my mother's side, which is near Lillooet, BC, and English-Welsh descent on my father's side. VocalEye is presenting to you today from the ancestral, unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish First Nations. Today, I'd like to share a little bit about West Coast Salish history with you. It's not the type of history that you're probably accustomed to. I'm going to share a Musqueam oral history with you. First people, also known as Indigenous people, Inuit, Métis, First Nations people in Canada, originally learned their oral histories from elders who learned from elders who had come before them. Oral history legends describe creation and also how first people came to exist on the earth. These narratives tell stories about how the world came to be and also how people should interact within the world and also with all living things. The story that I'm going to share with you is from the Salish Sea Sentinel website and was told by Celestine Alec of the Snuneymuxw First Nations in Nanaimo, BC. It was originally told to her by Mel Good. Long ago in Musqueam, two men from the village went down to the rock bed on the Fraser River to fish for sturgeon. They were very hungry when they caught the first sturgeon and they pulled it up. The men started a fire and they gutted the sturgeon. While they were gutting the fish, the men complained about how the sturgeon looked and they threw the remains in the bushes along the riverbed. They cooked the meat on the rock bed and ate it right away. But they had disrespected the sturgeon and insulted all of the sturgeon people, so much so that the sturgeon people left the Fraser River. As time went by, the Musqueam people recognized that sturgeons were no longer in the river, and they knew something was wrong. So the Musqueam people gathered for a meeting to decide what they could do. At the meeting, Sea Wolf stood up and told them they had insulted the sturgeon people for the way they had prepared and cooked the sturgeon on the flat rock bed. Sea Wolf told them that they had to find a way to ask for forgiveness. The people decided to send a beautiful princess down to the river to gift to the sturgeon people. The princess had a goat fur rope wrapped around her as she went down to the river. The sturgeon people accepted the princess and turned her into one of their own kind, and they returned back to the river. But the princess's mother was so sad for the loss of her daughter that she would cry at the rock bed day after day. One day, as she was crying and the princess came up out of the water, she told her mother she was happy to be living with the sturgeon people, and she asked her mother to no longer cry for her. To this day, when you gut a sturgeon, they have a white rope in their stomachs, shaped like the goat rope that the Musqueam people made so long ago, the rope that was wrapped around the princess. Thank you for listening to this Musqueam oral history about the sturgeon. When I was a kid, my dad is a fisherman and he would go to the Fraser River and sometimes they would fish for sturgeon. Nowadays, you can't keep sturgeon if you catch a sturgeon. They're protected fish because they can get up to 6 meters long. They're considered dinosaurs in our river. 6 meters long and live over 100 years. So these are really ancient fish. To each of you, I lift my hands upward, bent 90 degrees at the elbow, with flat palms facing forward toward me at eye level, and I say all my relations to acknowledge that we are all related. Thank you for being here tonight with us at VocalEye, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you, Deanna. I love the sharing of that oral history, so thank you for that. Whew. All right, friends. Well, welcome to a Wednesday, February the 2nd, 2022. Tonight, we're proud to offer you our Almost Live event number 70. I can't believe I said that out loud. Cool. I wonder what we get to do on our 100th event. We have to celebrate somehow. Anyways, that's for another day. Tonight, we're going to share with you My Father is the Greatest Man in the World. This is an audio play that was produced by the Arts Club. But before we get into sharing that, I want to invite our special guest into the space. So we've got JD Montgrand with us. JD, are you with us?
I am right here.
You're right here. I hear you. I'm just, a VocalEye team's going to spotlight you. So we're in squares together, or sort of in squares together.
Sure.
Squares side by side, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So JD, I thank you for joining us in the space. Really excited to have you here. Wonder if you can share with us a little bit about who you are as an artist and what your interaction with this particular piece has been before we listen to it.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is JD Montgrand. It means big mountain in French. I'm a woodland Cree man from northern Saskatchewan. My father is of settler descent. So I met him when I was 12, so I don't actually know my white side all that well, but it's UK, you know, the Welsh and Irish and English. I know that. Yeah, so my upbringing with my native family, and also for our guests, I'm easily mistaken as a settler. So my father, not only wasn't there when I was a kid, but he also stole all my pigment. But he left me with a very big beard right now, which I'm also going to be playing Louis Riel in a short film in the spring. So I'm growing.
Oh, fun!
A large beard.
You have to remember to tell us about that, JD, because I'd love to catch that. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, no, that's no problem. I'm very excited. We're working on some grants for that and everything right now.
Awesome.
It's going to be in Métis as well. Métis.
Mm-hmm.
So those of you that don't know Saskatchewan very well, it's mostly populated by Cree and Métis in terms of Indigenous folks. There's Ojibwe, and down in the south, there's Sioux, and there's Lakota, a bunch of other folks as well. But mostly in the north where I'm from, it's Cree and some Dene. And I've been living in Vancouver for the last 10 years now. And I've been a professional actor for 8 years, I think, about that. And I got into it on I was like, I love doing this. Why don't I actually take it seriously? Mm. And I've been fortunate that it's been working out quite well, which is how I ended up meeting Tai Grauman, the creator of this show. And this production is one which we had discussed a few things. She was telling me about it. She always tells me about her projects. And I did a reading with it. It's one of the projects of hers that I've worked on the least. Funnily enough, in the reading, I did Sam Bob's character, the father. And it's funny because it was the first time I got to be more of an older person. And in one of her readings, she usually cast me as one like the ingenue, and I'm very grateful for her because I'm 40 years old and I don't get an opportunity to play the young, sexy man very often. But in her shows, usually she'll cast me opposite of her or something, and she's in her mid-20s. Yeah, so this show, I'm not actually completely sure how the reading or the updated version went, because when I was in the reading, it was draft number 2. I'm very excited to see the changes, so I'm always hesitant to mention too much of the plot points or anything and see what changed, but
we can save that for the Q&A at the end.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'll be like, okay, let's see what actually was cut and left in. I'm very excited to actually listen to it as well.
Now, you were involved in a little bit of the development of this, right? And that because Tai Amy Grauman likes collaborative work.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that collaboration?
Yeah, Tai's very unique. She's always making these jokes that I deserve a writing credit on the projects that I work with her, because I've given her direct lines that she's lifted and put right into the show. Entire scenes, I suggested, I was like, well, I think this would make a lot more sense, especially with this upcoming scene, if you were to do this and this. And not many playwrights appreciate that. And fair enough, every artist is different. but you learn how to work within the boundaries that are often set when you're working with other playwrights. Some of them just want to get it up on its feet, see how it goes, really get it in their head, and they'll do all of that work. They want to hear ideas, and Tai's always been that way. We kind of have like a sibling relationship. We're always getting into these funny arguments, and people just laugh at us because we'll argue, but we still love each other. We're still friends. But she appreciates honesty, what you actually think is the better move for the show, because ego should be thrown out the window. And so it's always a real pleasure to work with her. Not just in this show, but there was, I don't know if you guys have done the reading of You Used to Call Me Marie, or any of those other shows that she's worked on. Yeah, if you get a chance, they're great too. Yeah, she's one of the few people that I feel like in a collaborative space, I can actually say, oh, no, this was garbage. We have that much of a shorthand in a scene, like, no.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, exactly. But it's nice to, because usually you have to be very diplomatic about things. You're like, that was interesting, you know.
Yeah, but it doesn't work.
If you're doing a play and someone sees you afterwards and goes, oh, that was very interesting, you know that they didn't like it, right? Or else they'll say something like, oh, the sound was great in that one scene, you know, something very, very specific. But Tai is, yeah, she's got some thick skin, and she really just wants to make shows as good as she possibly can. So I'm very excited.
So you were involved in some of the readings, and maybe for folks who are new to how a show gets developed, can you maybe talk a little bit about what your experience was in terms of the development process?
Yeah.
I know it's probably a little bit different for each show, but I'm sure there's some real standard things that maybe happen along the road.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, in the creation of a play, if you're lucky, because everyone's different, you can write a grant, and if you might be able to get a little bit of funding, and with that you can actually hire some other professionals to sit down and help you really flesh it out, find out what points are weak in your show, what's really strong with the messages, how to make it clearer. And so you'll do a workshop, a number of workshops if you're very lucky as well, and you'll get a collection of folks together. They'll get some scenes up on their feet. They might it might just be a day thing where you literally just read the play, and you get to get a little bit of feedback that way. And so in this one, it was the second reading that I was brought in for, because I was out of town for something else on the first one. And we just sat down. We're all old friends. The First Nations theater community, generally, we all know each other, if not know of each other. Yeah, the world is very small in that way. And so we all sat around, did our reading, gave our honest feedback. And because I wasn't going to be cast in this one, you start kind of pushing towards that way, like, okay, who's a better feel? Who are we actually going to have playing these characters? And you start edging it that way in the workshop process, trying to find better fits, you know, what this character really embodies, who would actually be able to bring this character to life. And like I said, there's no ego, so there's never any, you know, I wasn't insulted at all or anything like that. I wasn't going to play the father. I knew that from the start, but you just want to get your people that you trust, whose ideas that you trust, to take part in those initial readings, to really get it all set up, start breathing that life into it. And then if you fast forward a couple of years, you might actually have a play, and not all of them make it. Not all of them actually get up and become real projects. So it's always nice when something actually gets legs and takes off.
Yeah, I think it's nice when sort of you get to put the bow on the package, and it all come together. But sometimes, you know, the greatest learning stuff comes in that journey of the development and the meeting of people and the collaborating. And when I get to work on pieces, sometimes those are where like my most fondest memories come from. And the greatest friendships. And so the whole thing is of value, even if it doesn't end up being a fully fledged something you can share with the public, right?
Oh, exactly. And I'm sure that you and a lot of people here can appreciate that familial feel that you have with all these people. You love them, you know, you're working with good good people, and that's what keeps you coming back every time.
Awesome. Well, with that, friends, JD, I know you're going to come back after we listen to My Father's the Greatest Man in the World and join us for a Q&A. But with that, I'm going to invite friends to sit back and enjoy the audio play by Tai Amy Grauman called My Father is the Greatest Man in the World.
Due to copyright restrictions, this feature presentation has not been recorded. Please check below for more information, including links to the material if it is hosted elsewhere.
Welcome back. That was My Father's the Greatest Man in the World by Tai Amy Grauman. And back in the space with us is going to be our special guest, JD.
Hello.
Hello, JD. Welcome back to the space. I love this piece. There's a lot of really enduring things in there. And friends in the audience, I want to ask a question of you all, and please feel free to raise your hands and chime into the conversation. But I'm wondering about what moments really resonated with you, because I've got a couple. I'm sure you've got a couple, JD, but let's start with are there moments in this that really resonated with you as you listened to it?
Me right now, absolutely. At the very end, actually that final moment where it's ambiguous, what does she choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Love that. That wasn't in our original at all, at least the second draft that I was working on. So it was still also up in the air, like, where?
Okay, what happens in the second draft? Does she stay or does she go?
No, in the second draft, we didn't even have that far. That's the thing, is that we're going that way and she's gonna go, and then, but what? That's not an ending. Like, I mean, but the way that she managed to narrow it into that final focal point, I liked a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. If anyone else has any other parts right now, that's great. But because I'm going to kind of just rumble through a couple of things that I. Really...
Yeah, well, we've got a hand from Megan, so let's let Megan come in and chat, and we'll continue. Megan, what are your thoughts or questions? Give Megan just a minute.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. My favorite part was my favorite part was the moment when he talks about the stars and how that one star is shining really, really bright, and that was actually Grandma's, my great-great-grandma's. That's just amazing. Like, you can be stars in yourself, like stars of singer star, but also stars on the sky. So in a way, you know, like, for me, I don't really see the stars as you know, our relatives, but in a way, I hear stars like in singers. You know what I mean? It's quite different.
Could be an interesting like parallel, or maybe not really a metaphor, but like I don't know. What do you think about that, JD? Could the stars be like code for lots of other things?
Code? I'm not even. I mean,
maybe not code. What's the word I'm looking for? Like symbolic of?
Symbolic of, yeah. I mean, there are future dreams, aspirations, or past. At least in our teachings, Cree, yeah, our stars are our ancestors. But we're also in a cycle, right? So when we die, we go back to the stars and we teach the new oncoming stars what it means to be human again. Yeah.
That's a beautiful piece of, I'm going to say, oral history. Is that right? That was Deanna so brilliantly taught us earlier in this space. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really, I love hearing that from a lived experience perspective, because it's not my lived experience. So I'm going to think differently next time I think about the stars. So thank you for that. We were talking a bit about the ambiguous ending. Friends, if you think you know what happened at the end, please chime in. What do you want to happen at the end, JD? Do you have a guess or any way in which you think that it should end up? I don't know.
I personally think she should go for John. He loves her a lot. I don't know. You know, like, I mean, I think she could, it's a new era. She can do online singing now, right? I mean, you don't need to be there so much once you're already established. The world is big. The world is big. We're all connected by the internet now.
You're so right. And what's interesting to me is this place where we are that's kind of I don't want to be controversial about it, but it's like, why does she have to choose? Why are we asking her to make a choice? She could have both. She's a modern human. She could have both.
I agree. I totally agree. Why does it have to be so binary then?
Right?
Yeah.
I love it. In my utopia, she has both.
Yeah.
We've got a hand from Lori. Let's see what Lori's got to say.
I really liked towards the end how her and her father finally, I think, could agree on what her life is, on the music, and how it meant how it meant so much to her, you know, to be able to sing. And I think he finally understood it after all this time.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, do you think that she finally came to a place to understand where he's coming from? Because
yes, I think she did.
Have a big oil, right? So the two,
yeah, that he had to do his life and she had to do her life, but they could still be, you know, father and daughter, you know.
Thank you for sharing that, Lori.
Yeah, that love really shines through in that relationship.
Yeah. And that's really something that resonates with everybody, right? It's like the relationships we have with our family, good, bad, or indifferent. That's something that resonates with probably every human being on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about this moment where Rose is unsure of how to say "I love you" in her family's language.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, close to the end, when she does the concert, she talks about a song that came to her while she was at the river. And so for me, I wonder about, like, you know, her not being able to say "I love you" in her language or her family's language is like she's been gone too long. She's, you know, disconnected from the culture. But then is it suggested that she reconnects because she is reconnected with the land and writes this song? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's just referencing her ongoing journey, you know, like, I mean, it's always, you're always going to be learning new things as you're going through it, especially when it comes to reconnection with culture. I can definitely attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's so much confusion. Like there's a really powerful moment that I really enjoyed too in the show where she's like, oh, they got Métis in the States. They just don't call themselves Métis.
Yeah.
Which is, a lot of people would think that, but the Métis culture is so rich and vibrant. And it is a very unique culture that they would say, no, those people are not Métis. We are the Métis. And we can trace our lineages to these specific people in this specific group in this time. And there's small, like you could say small m Métis, which would be correct because it's just mixed race, Métis mixed.
Mm-hmm.
But then capital M, that's a very unique group of people. So, and for a long time, I was confused too growing up. I'm like, well, my dad's white, so I guess I'm Métis, not Cree. I don't know. Like,
so now you've got me questioning because I don't know these details that you're talking about. So could you unpack that just a little bit for us? So the difference between lowercase Métis and uppercase Métis and
right. Well,
means?
Métis is just a word, a descriptor. With a lowercase m, it just means mixed. But that could be attributed to anyone that's of mixed race. Capital M Métis is a very unique people. It's a unique and one of the world's newest cultures and identifiable groups. And they have very strict protocols in place as to how to identify who is who. Mm-hmm. And you talk to any person who traces their lineage. And there's people that do this for the Métis, and they can actually narrow it down to a very small group of people that were there at the founding of the Métis Nation.
Do you know, I remember seeing something about this on the local news not so long ago. There was a woman, and my apologies because her name's going to escape me, but she had celebrated her 100th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
And was granted Métis status.
Wow.
Yeah. So as you're talking about this, like puzzle pieces are coming together, because I was listening to that story and didn't necessarily really understand, you know, why it would take so long. But now that you're providing the context, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And also that's another thing, an extra layer of confusion within government protocols as well, because you can still get a Métis card, not be a capital M Métis person if you are of mixed race. So there's confusion, and understandable confusion too. Like if you're in BC interior area and you have no connection to the Cree and the Mohawk and the people that made up the original Métis group, you could still technically get a BC Métis status, but you wouldn't be part of the Métis land culture.
Okay. So let me just clarify in my own brain, and my apologies if I don't have the right language, please correct me. So Métis with a lowercase m would be somebody who was mixed of an Indigenous background, but not necessarily Cree or some of the other nations that were first there when the Métis were born.
Correct, yeah. Okay. Just say I'm mixed race, basically.
Okay, but by mixed race, it is essentially settler and some kind of Indigenous mixed race.
Well, that's another, and again, there's layers to this, because Métis is it translates to mixed. It's just a mix. Okay. You're mixed race. You're gotcha. So you could be, say, my mother is African American and my father's white, and you're Métis, but nobody really uses that word to attribute to other races at the same time. So it's always about Indigenous people, at least in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that context. It's I love learning in a space, so thank you for that. We got a couple of hands, so we'll go to Faye first, and then we'll go to Richard. Give Faye a moment to unmute.
Faye.
And when we're using screen readers, sometimes it takes a moment to.
Oh, sure, yeah.
To do the unmuting, the magical unmuting.
No problem.
There we go. I think.
Can you hear me, Amy?
We got you, Faye.
Okay, I'm Métis.
Okay.
But I grew up that we were embarrassed to be Métis. When we went to school, not one of us, and we were all Métis, we all said we were Polish or
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm from Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm from around Batoche.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Yeah. So
real Métis right there. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, the real and all that. And yeah, but that's all I can say. No, now it's trendy to be Métis. Yeah, everybody wants to be a Métis.
That's right. And that's that people that we need to educate better about the difference of.
Because the Métis, the real, and I shouldn't say I want to be politically correct, but most of the real Métis are from Manitoba, starting. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Faye, was there a particular moment in this piece that really resonated with you?
Everything I found it kind of emotional for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if she was going to stay or leave. And I still don't. I hope she comes back and stays home and sings like you guys said on Zoom or something.
Yeah. So your vote is to go back to St. Paul.
Yeah. But I'm not moving back to Saskatchewan.
I feel like too, Faye. I'm in the same boat. I miss it. I love it, but I'm not.
And where are you from? Where were you raised?
L'Orange.
Oh, L'Orange. Okay.
Up in L'Orange, yeah. So
yeah.
I know Batoche. I love Batoche. It's good to visit.
But it's always great to leave. I love it. Listen, I feel like that with my family too, and they're just in Calgary. I love to visit, but I also love to leave.
We all need to go back to Batoche when this COVID is over. And Amy, you're coming along with us.
I will. I am so there, Faye. If you all are going to be my guides, I am so there. That's a promise. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Faye. Let's go to Richard, and then we'll go to looks like Keisha after that. So Richard, you're up first.
Okay. I'm also Métis as well, and capital M Métis as well. I did go through the process to register my family's lineage, and it took the better part of 2 years from requesting official documents from the province of Manitoba and through to getting my actual citizenship card. So there is an official citizenship card that is more legitimate than the card that you're probably talking about, that's just issued to people that are basically come out and say they're Métis, but the people that go through the process are the capital M Métis. My family was originally from Manitoba, and my parents were both born in St. Rose de Lac.
Okay.
Yeah. But wow. I don't want to go back to Winnipeg either. That's where I was born.
A lot of that going on here tonight.
But Amy, if VocalEye wants to do a chartered tour to Batush, I'm in on that as well too, because Bill and I want to go.
Who's
to Batush.
Gonna write the grant for that one?
Yeah, because we went. It was really funny because the same with us. Like we didn't. None of my family didn't admit they were Métis. And we went to Batush when I was in grade 3 with my grandparents, and they were looking for family names and all the old in the books and the post office and stuff, and they had Métis stuff, but they never admitted they were Métis. My dad's mom, my grandmother, my dad's side was her family roots traced back to North Dakota is North Dakota. So it was quite interesting how they never admitted it, and it was really only something that we started discovering as like the grandchildren, like more so in the last decade or so again.
Mm-hmm. Richard, was there a particular moment for you then that resonated with this piece?
I kind of was just thinking about that as you're asking, in some ways I think she had to. It resonated that she had to really go away from small town Alberta to really appreciate her heritage, and also it, like, I don't think and at the end she finally realized it was what she was fighting against, which is what really gave her the opportunity to actually have the resources to basically be opposed to the oil industry, and also it just showed how much industry has really taken away from traditional ways of life as well too.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance in this piece, talking about the oil industry and like a bit of activism around environmental sustainability and culture and all of, like, how all of these things exist sort of in the same world. Yeah. Right, even though they're like, some of them are quite opposite from each other, but we are all in this world together. So I thought that was a really interesting point. Thank you, Richard.
And I was hoping she would come back as well too. I was really hoping for the Hollywood ending where she would come back and rush into the arms of John and they would get married. And
oh yeah,
and they put a sound booth in the basement.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Almost like it would have been a Hallmark movie if only they had a bakery and some Christmas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious, JD. Yeah. A bakery. I love it. Thanks, Richard. I should have been keeping a tally for how many were, should she stay or should she go?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
We'll take a hand from Keisha. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Keisha.
Yep. I think she should also stay. And I feel like this is so great because I'm actually Cree from Laurence too.
No way!
Yeah, so that's so. Dance. Namo gananta, gita ma. Well, I'm actually from Toronto, but my dad's from like Laurence. So he was part of the 60 Scoop. My Nogom lives on Sucker River Reserve, and Nomoshom is from Stanley Mission. My grandfather's from Stanley Mission. So yeah, that's so cool to hear that you're from Laurence. I'm actually calling from Spiritwood right now, which is Treaty 6 in Métis territory, about 2 hours north of Saskatoon. My partner is a citizen of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. So it's really great to be like in space with other like Indigenous folks, First Nation and Métis folks. And I really enjoyed the audio play. Thank you so much for all of this.
I'm going to ask you the same question if you want to answer it, about something that may have particularly resonated with you about this piece.
I feel like, as somebody who was like disconnected through the 60 Scoop and who's grown up in Toronto, mainly, I feel like the reconnection is what really, really got me. And even like the part where, she struggled to like know her language. For a lot of like Métis folks, like I feel like there's so many dialects of Michif, which is the Métis language. There's Michif that's closer to Anishinaabe-Moan, Ojibwe. There's Michif that's closer to Nehiyawewin, to Cree. So like that struggle of like language and identity is a struggle that like I know really personally. But yeah, I enjoyed the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
yeah,
your
awesome
experience with those of us who don't have the same lived experience. I really appreciate
awesome
that. Thank you. Okay, we got a hand from Nancy and then from Rita. So Nancy, will give you a moment to unmute.
Oh, that did my heart good.
Can you hear me?
Your heart good? Yeah, I love that, JD. I can see the smile on your face. I may be mostly blind, but I can see the smile on your face. Yes, Nancy, we can hear you, my friend. What's your question or thought?
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I just recently lost my mom 2 years ago on January 30th, and the love I had with my dad we're alike, we're stubborn and everything else. And I moved to Vancouver. My son is native too. He's from Lillooet. And he's, I tried to give the love. I wanted to know what love was all about, because in our culture, love was harder to say to our children and to my dad, say to my dad. But I want now, after my daughter had her baby, I want to show what love is all about, especially to my son that he's native. And the story touched me, but it was so nice to hear how she was going through and talking to her mom and telling her, what she should do and how she should move forward. And my son moved out almost a year ago and let it go, and he'll come back. But if he doesn't, at least he's gone forward. But the story made me touched, and I really appreciate the story that you did today, and hope you have a part 2 to this.
we'll have to ask Tai to write a part 2, I guess. Yep. Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing your thoughts. Rita, got a hand from Rita.
Yeah, okay. So for me, this was an incredibly emotional play. I really, really loved it. There were a bunch of places that made a difference, and I do vote for her to go back.
You do?
Not the Hollywood ending, but I think it seemed like that would be emotionally the right thing from my perspective. Anyway,
go home for love.
Yeah, exactly. And her dad, he was, saying, well, it doesn't matter what you do, but love is what really matters. And that was a really wise thing for him to be saying. Mm-hmm. And then there was all these things about, how a lot of these people are surviving because of the oil industry. And, but of course, at the same time, it's killing the native way of life kind of thing. So, anyway, but there were, and her whole connection with her mom and her, going and saying, Mom, she's still talking to her mom years after the mom died and everything. And anyway, it was a wonderful play. I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Rita, for your thoughts.
Thank you, Rita.
JD, there are moments in this play, and I invite folks who want to share their experience about this, but because it travels back and forth in time, right? So we're following the progression of Rose kind of as she grows up, a little bit of the relationship with her parents before she was born, and then, kind of as she grows up a little bit. And there's a really cool sound effect, like sound technique that happens when we're back in time that almost sounds a little bit like they're talking in a cave or like an echoey kind of thing. And I know that you didn't do the sound design yourself, but I wonder, if you hear it the same way that I hear it, like what kind of impact that makes on you as a listener in this story.
Oh, wow. Well, actually, this is because usually I'm doing a reading and we're imagining things that are going on, but this is such a treat because there is a lot more added in to it, and it really did help. Like I was like, right, we're in the past, we're in a different moment now. Mm-hmm. And it helps cement that in with me. So I was greatly enjoying that. I just thought of actually Small Sky, Big Star. There's the new series that's going to take off after this. It's about her in the small town being a big star.
Are you being facetious?
I'm being facetious right now.
Because I was all excited for a second. I thought you were talking about a real project that was happening.
I'm terrible. But
okay, you know what? Since you have a sibling relationship with Tai, plant the seed, JD. Now, tell her the blind community wants this.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. That's right. We have spoken. And we have a question from Tammy or a thought. Tammy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there. Very good play. I really enjoyed it a lot. First thing I'll say is that if you've ever watched soaps, I have to say I used to watch soaps a while back. Every time they're having a dream, it's always echoey. So anyway, just wanted to, yeah. See, I always knew if somebody was like dreaming something or going back in time, it was always echoey. So there we go. Yeah, I think this play was really great because it kind of, it sort of shows, I think, that you can be in the same town as your, family, your friends, where you grew up, or you could be far away. But you can always have that connection, with where you came from. And so I think, like Rita, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the ending was that she did go back, because it seemed to me that she learned maybe throughout that visit that you can have your life in Nashville and do the things that you do there, but she will always have her family and her friends. And I can sort of see that, sort of combining that a bit more and having that balance. So I kind of think that that's something that really resonated with me in terms of the play. Just maybe she's created that balance. Like I can have both things. I can have my family, my friends. I can kind of combine, the indigenous or the way of life that she knows from her family and her life in Nashville. So it was quite interesting that way. So I guess we'll never really know what happens, but I don't know. It just was a really interesting sort of revelation, I think, in the play.
Yeah, I love the moment where she's, after they have the party and she says to her friends, like, oh, I haven't been up since this late since my third kid was born, right? And it's like, I think the moments like that really, for Rose, were like, oh yeah, your kids don't really know me. And we were so close, and that really resonated with me because I got a lot of family in Calgary, and all my cousins are really close, but I'm so far away. And when I go there, I feel embraced, but I always get to listen to the stories of them doing fabulous things together, and I'm not there to take part in that. I'm still not moving back to Calgary, but
I agree with you, Amy. Yeah, I agree with you because my family's in Ontario, and I'm the only one here in BC. So it kind of, I guess, it was a bit of a personal thing too in terms of family and friends. And I think during this pandemic, for me anyway, I really reached out more to people in Ontario where I used to live than maybe I would have before. So anyway, I think it was very timely, this play, in that sense as well. So
well, thank you for sharing that, Tammy. JD, I mean, I could ask you so many more thoughts about this, but we're getting close to the end of our little chinwag about the play and hearing from our audience. So I'm curious if you want to tell us a little bit about your movie that you're working on, the story of Louis Riel, because again, that's very representative of Métis.
I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say.
That's too bad.
It's just because we haven't gotten the complete greenlit. We're working on it right now. There's a $75,000 grant, but we're working on another $100,000 grant.
Wonderful.
And it's just going to be a short play. I mean, I could give you what I can talk about. It's just basically the last day of the Battle of Métis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that, please keep us posted. I know that these things will probably take a while to get money and to film and to edit and to all those things. So we may not hear from you on this for a year, maybe even more. Who knows?
Get it all out, and it should be out hopefully in about a year. So
I would really invite that, because again, the truth is that my lived experience is so far removed that I get sort of like anecdotal information about some of these historical things. And I'm never quite sure what lens that's coming through, and so I would really appreciate being a part of witnessing something like that. Oh, I do see we have a hand from Sean J, joining us from Ontario. Sean, do you have a question or a thought? Give Sean a moment to unmute. I think we got you. Sean, are you with us?
He's muted again.
Muted again. Give Sean a moment here.
Yeah.
As accessible as Zoom is, sometimes it can be a little tricky.
Oh, that's no problem. Technical issues are very common.
It's part of the new world, right? This is what I say to friends when we get on meetings and somebody says, oh, you know, you might hear my dog bark, my cat meow in the background. It's like,
yeah,
I'm working from home these days. You know?
I enjoy that a lot, actually. I enjoy the normalcy that it's sort of like, oh yeah, we all have lives and we all have our things going on.
That's right. For me, it's the house, the neighbors are rebuilding their house. They tore it down, and the last couple of days have been a bunch of rah, 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 as the house is coming down. So
I did a reading a while back, and there was literally a jackhammer above my head while they were, it didn't go well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting for Sean, I also see that Louise has a hand. So maybe we'll go ahead to Louise. And Sean, if you don't want to speak anymore, that's totally cool. But we'll go to Louise.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Louise.
It was very touching in so many ways. I can't even put my thoughts into words. But I want to say this. The one thing I thought about it was, I'm going to go from the father's side for a second. Yeah, my phone rang after this thing, and I didn't get all the comments, so I'm hoping I'm not repeating something someone said. I looked at it from the father's side. He wanted something for his daughter to accept what he was and who he was. I saw that in his, at the beginning, when she first came home, that he wanted something from her that was different, and always that he didn't want her to follow her dream. That's what I got the feeling of. But then when after the concert, he saw a different side of what she was doing and what she was reaching and what the goals she had. And I think it reminded him of her culture, the culture. He wanted to give her more than he could give her. Meaning is, you know, he quit, he moved away from the culture, their native, you know, part of them, their culture, to work in a field to make sure she had and gave her everything he wanted to give her. And I saw that she, in a way, didn't understand what he had sacrificed for her, and the sacrifices she was trying to, not the sacrifices she was trying to make, she was trying to make her dream come true in the process, and he didn't understand her dream.
Yeah.
And I can't put, I'm trying to put it into words, but I felt their pain between each other, and did that, not the fact she was angry at her father for what he did, but he didn't understand her and why she wanted to stand up for her culture, for their part of their life, you know, their heritage.
So Louise, what's your vote? Does she stay or does she go?
I don't know what you think. I say part of me says she stays to marry and writes music. That's what I hope she does. I hope she still is faithful to her music and writes it and puts it to song somehow, but does it from home and travels when she needs to, you know, not to do concerts, but more to do concerts more in, you know, local.
So maybe she's got that balance between, you know, returning home to you know, be a part of her family and her culture, and being a part of this other world that she loves so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
I think she needs the music to live. I think that's part of who she is.
Yeah, maybe.
So I believe that very truly. It's like there's something inside her. Because I remember her mom's words when she was born. I heard the song. I heard she's going to be a singer. It was predicted, even, you know, when she gave birth to her, like early on. It was like that was her calling from day one.
Oh, thank you, Louise, for sharing that. I think that's very insightful.
Yes.
Looks like we got Sean unmuted. So Sean, you'll be our last question or comment.
I want to say very much. I very much enjoyed it. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sean. Go ahead.
I said I enjoyed it, and I love you guys. I mean, I love your presentation.
Was there a particular moment, Sean, for you that resonated?
Lots of it's very touching. I can't really touch that right now.
Yeah.
Because it's just touchy to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I myself trying to explain that. I lost from 1970. Sorry, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
But I think I know where she's coming from. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean, for sharing that. Really appreciate you sharing your perspective.
Would there be a follow-up on that?
Not as far as I know. This is, I think it's its own piece in its entirety.
Yeah, this is
wow.
Yeah. But, although Tai is always working on other things. Yeah. And so she may be joining us in the space for another project.
Very well done.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm glad that people have really identified with a lot of this
yeah.
and the connection with culture and the loss of it, and the struggle to find it again.
Mm-hmm.
A very powerful theme.
I did see a hand from Pierre, so I just want to make sure it's going up and down and up and down. So I'm not sure if it's like a computer glitchy thing, or it's like, I have a question, but I don't have a question.
Sorry, my voiceover is not telling me hand raised or hand lowered.
Okay, well, Pierre, you have the privilege of being our last question of the evening or comment.
Oh, well, just a quick comment. Yeah, I appreciated everything, and then the song by the river and all the dialogues. But what really touched me, and it's maybe because I'm father of daughters too, but it's the dialogue between the father and the daughter, how respectful they were mutually. And even if they did not agree, like the father wanted her to stay, and but that was really powerful for me, how they were allowing space for each person to give their opinion and respect it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Pierre, for sharing.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to hear that, isn't it, Amy? Like,
yeah.
I question. I feel like this play, just with the current political climate, and maybe like 5 years ago this play happened, maybe, or something, compared to right now, today.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's an interesting point. See, you know, JD, you were worried at the top that we weren't going to have stuff to talk about. Here we are, 35 minutes in, and we have made a real conversation out of this. But before I officially let you off the hook for this evening of being our special guest, we have one last piece of business, which is a raffle. Are you interested in pulling a raffle name for us tonight?
Yeah, I'll pull a raffle name. I love it.
All right. Well, we got Donna in the space, and I'm going to leave you in Donna's capable hands.
Okay. Hi, Donna.
Oh, hi. All right. So I have names in this bag that I'm shaking up, and you can yell any word whenever you want, and I will mix these names.
Okay. And then when I yell, you're going to get it? Okay.
Yep.
What's the guts?
And it's our new patron, Sean J.
Sean J. Congratulations, Sean J. You've won a raffle prize. Of course, we never tell you what the raffle prize is because folks are dialing in from all over Turtle Island and all over the States. So we will connect with you, Sean, to get you your raffle prize.
Thank you.
Thank you. And friends, I want to just officially thank JD for joining us this evening, being our guide through this piece, sharing about your culture and your experience with this piece, JD. It's just been a joy having you here. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Amy. This was an absolute pleasure.
I hope this is not the last time we see you in our space.
I hope not as well. Yeah.
All right, friends, that'll be the closing of our event this evening. Thank you for joining us for My Father's the Greatest Man in the World.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.